Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the L1 Link Show with friends, where we share links with you, our friends, on the internet.
Especially the ones of you that are giving us money.
But especially those ones.
The links are for everybody, technically.
They are.
But
You get them early.
you get a special joy in giving them into the ones that give you money back.
It's been a fun, exciting week. And by that, I mean, there's nothing.
It's spring now.
Well, at the time we're shooting this, the banks are collapsing around us, and we're going to have a whole bunch of that news next week. But for today, we've got last week's news.
We got plenty of collapse last week. We don't have a ton of government and security, unfortunately. This will be kind of a slow one today. We can take our time. We can chew on this meat. But let's start out with the FCC. The FCC is still doing more than they ever have done in the past, it seems. This one was a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that this was wrong. It took them a long time, but hey, at least we're getting it.
FCC chair proposes a ban on deceptive broadcast TV and regional sports fees. You've noticed that on your cable bill? And it's like, what is
this? Yeah.
It's just it's a fee that they're stealing from you with.
It's a fluff fee.
A lot of the time, these are used deceptively, too, because they're required by law to advertise what cable rate that you pay, but historically there have been exceptions for taxes. So like sometimes you see a school tax. There's a school tax on cable TV, and that money goes directly to your local school. That's exempted because that's charged by a local municipality. Okay, maybe I guess that kind of makes sense when they say you're gonna pay $100 a month for cable, and then it's like $100 and $102.50.
They should just advertise it as that price, though.
Some lizard in a suit said, "Wait a minute! If the schools can get away with that, why don't we tack on some more fees?" And thus was born broadcast TV and regional sports fees.
Also, I don't think I'm getting any value for my money from modern schools. I don't think they're doing anything worthwhile at those schools. Also, ISPs do the same thing.
Yeah.
And why does this not encompass that as well?
Yeah.
Come on.
It should encompass everything. Like, you shouldn't be able to just sneak in a bunch of random fees without explaining what they are.
The FCC does have to be a little careful here, though, because pretty soon that's going to be Federal Trade Commission territory. And we always joke about how they're just government agencies pointing at each other, but some of this billing stuff really is FTC territory. So it's like,
That's such a bad excuse for not fixing things.
Yeah.
That's,
It's not my department.
Yeah.
That's like in 9/11 when there was like, how did we not see this coming? And they were like, well, we kind of knew, but we didn't want to tell anybody because we don't like sharing information. It's like, oh yeah, that makes total sense.
Oh, okay, yeah. We're all on the same team here, but okay.
As a result of that, can we start a never-ending war?
Another one?
And Google, we have learned in the past that they were told by the Justice Department, hey, we're looking into you. Hang on to all your stuff. And they said, gotcha, we'll totally do that. And then they instituted a policy of deleting chat messages after 24 hours. Justice Department is not happy about that, but Google says this is industry standards.
Google defends its auto-deletion of chats after U.S. alleged it destroyed evidence, is the Ars Technica headline. We reported on this last week, but I got to say Google's defense of this is interesting. Some of this goes back 4 years, and so things are different now than they were 4 years ago. But one of the things the Department of Justice has issue with is that they didn't preserve absolutely everything. Preserving absolutely everything in all contexts, that does seem a little overreaching. It seems like part of the Department of Justice's strategy here was to send them that and then sit on it for a while and then try to capture evidence of stuff that happened in the 4 years since. Google did preserve the stuff that was in flux 4 years ago when they got the notice, but they did not change the company-wide policy that certain kinds of things are expunged as part of the normal process. So they didn't delete stuff they weren't supposed to, but they didn't change absolutely everything to retain forever.
That seems a little weird too, though. Like, imagine you're talking about something that's like important for the company, like so you remember it, and then it just gets memory hold immediately. Like
after 24 hours. Yeah.
Well,
that's annoying though. Like,
but there's a lot of that going through. I mean, it's a non-trivial amount of storage just to manage all of that. And, it's a difficult argument because it's overreach on the part of the government for sure, but we know who Google is.
Yeah.
We know what they're doing. So it's
also, I'm just imagining being like the worker in that environment where it's like, okay, I talked to Bill in this other department like a week ago, and I don't remember exactly all the details. Let me check that chat message. Oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For these particular chats, I bet they remember all the details because it's the nasty stuff they don't want anybody
Yeah,
to
they don't
know
want anybody to know. Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll retain it.
Well, think about the text messages. There was the lawsuit. It wasn't the Bernie Madoff lawsuit. It was one of the ones, and they thought that it was a 24-hour deletion thing. This has nothing to do with Google, but it was the retention thing. And the text messages were along the lines of, "Oh, okay, you want me to send you an email that says this, so that we've got a paper trail that makes it look like X." And it's like, "Yes, you should totally send me that." And so, and then so. In the email part of it, it looks innocent and fine. But in the text message part, it's like they knew exactly what they were doing. That makes them, sort of culpable here. This wasn't innocent, actions. This was deliberate malfeasance.
Well, you know who else knows exactly what they're doing? Amazon. They know exactly what they're getting away with. They're doing it as a business strategy. Up until now, it's worked. But up until now, maybe the big push has never been attempted.
Washington prepares for war with Amazon. We're going to war.
It's a very inflammatory headline, but I mean,
They're maybe preparing 6 different lawsuits across 6 different spheres of Amazon business, from retail to Amazon Web Services, which is really interesting.
So we got iRobot.
Yep.
Government does not like it that they bought iRobot. They do not feel that that is a good acquisition and turns them into more of a monopoly. And of course, we got the surveillance worries because now we got vacuums in our home.
Surveillance worries through the robot, which is different than the surveillance worries through other
Ring.
Amazon products.
Like Ring cameras, which is the next sticking point.
That's a different lawsuit, technically, because it's a whole other set of privacy concerns.
Oh yeah, retail. The fact that they're setting up these stores, which are now all failing, so maybe that won't be as big of a bullet point. But those stores tie into your Prime subscription, and they give you benefits that other visitors to the store don't have. I don't like that.
I think the retail lawsuit from the FTC was the least fleshed out one, because the lawsuit is literally, we noticed you bought Whole Foods. Whole Foods was doing really good. We noticed Whole Foods is struggling now. Would you care to explain that?
that one seems the weakest too, because you could say the same thing about like Kroger with the Kroger card.
But Kroger doesn't have. Well, I guess they do have an.
Yeah, they have a
website
customer.
now.
Yeah, customer portal, and yeah.
Until the whatever kind of collapse Kroger suffered, their online order fulfillment was probably the best in our area. And then something happened, and they had the shortage, and there was no products on the shelves or anything. And since then, it's just been a mess.
That's true of all grocery stores. I mean, nobody has any stock anymore. Next up is Dark Patterns trying to cancel Prime.
Yeah,
It's impossible.
I've never tried to cancel Prime, but I remember going to the page one time to see what that was all about. It didn't seem that bad, but maybe there's more after you make the initial click, I guess.
Yeah, almost certainly.
That was going to be a slam dunk.
And finally, the Amazon choice and recommended by Amazon as you search. They promote certain products to the top and say, hey, this is the one you want. And they don't like that.
Turns out you can just pay for that, which seems not good. Would you like to be the Amazon Choice product? Oh yeah, that sounds good. All right, let's do it. The Amazon Choice, though, like if that's not okay, then probably some of the stuff Walmart has done is also not okay, because they were doing the exact same kind of thing, but in brick and mortar, not online.
Yeah, Walmart does the thing where it's like, hey, why don't you come be a part of Walmart? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm dying to be a part of Walmart. And then they're like, yeah, a year later, we're going to pay you 20 cents less per item. And you're like, what? No, I can't do
Why?
that.
Yeah.
Then you won't be a part of Walmart anymore.
We're going to pay you 20 cents less an item, and we're going to move it to the bottom shelf. But we can pay you 40 cents less an item and keep you where you are on the shelf.
And
And that's somehow okay.
you know that $100,000 that you spent trying to adapt to our warehousing system? You lose that because you're out. It's a strong position to be in. And we had the TikTok, the long-awaited TikTok before Congress testifying. That was a terrible way to put that. Testimony, that's the word I couldn't grasp. Yesterday for us. And it was kind of a nothing burger.
If you want to weep for humanity, CNN Business headline is March 23rd. TikTok CEO Shou Chew testifies before Congress. If you saw this, it's no wonder that the CCP thinks we're all idiots, because
most of us are idiots.
Yeah.
But let's be fair. The highest concentration of idiots is in this room.
I mean, it was I weep for humanity, and like that poor guy. Even if he's some sort of Bond villain mastermind running TikTok. No one deserved to be subjected to that level of idiocy.
I don't know. I mean, he's spying on us and addicting our children and our adults.
I mean, if that's the case, then let's be direct and be coherent at least. That was just, it wasn't coherent. It
No.
was just
Theater.
Yes.
It's always theater in that room.
It's like the Zuckerberg trials where it was like mostly memes after a while because it's like, well, they don't know what's going on.
They're like, well, we know we can't outsmart you, so we're just going to spray poop all over the walls. Okay.
And one of the big arguments for the anti-TikTok sentiment is our teens, our poor teens. They're,
Our poor car dealerships, which are being ravaged by those teens.
well, not only are they stealing Kias and Hyundais, but they're depressed, they're suicidal, they're not eating right, they're a mess. Their education isn't working. So we need a scapegoat. And I think this is way, way, way overreach. As much as I dislike teens and don't want them to enjoy themselves, this is going too far.
Utah passes law requiring parental permission for teens to use social media. 2 new laws will impose strict rules on how teens use social media.
Critically, they didn't actually define how they were going to
Nope.
enforce this at all. And they're like, it'll just go into effect in 2024. It's like, well,
So presumably, if they don't have some kind of guardrails here, you could, like, if your kid gets a hold of a phone, you're immediately in violation of this.
right.
It's another law that they can come after you at any time, but they probably won't. But if you make them mad,
The other thing too that they pointed out in this article was like, does that mean social media companies are going to have a copy of like your ID and any dependents you have? Like, how are they going to, like, there's no detail.
remind me, has there ever been a major leak from one of those sites?
Never. Absolutely. They take our data very seriously.
I got a quick fix for this, y'all. We just mentally substitute use social media for use networked computer. Problem solved.
How are you going to keep them away from them?
Teens are not permitted to use a networked computer.
Well, their education might suffer.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
there's
it's not-
either like remote learning, but there's also like just going to the computer lab when you're at physical school. Like, doesn't that count?
I think the app stores would lobby against that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're not allowed to go on the school trips without a parent's permission. How's it using the computer lab any different? It's like, oh, I'm sorry, Timmy, your parent hasn't signed the computer lab permission slip.
I don't think this is
they'll
limited.
just forge the signature.
It's not limited to the school, is
Not
it?
that I would
No.
ever do that.
Oh, yeah. Like, what if your kid goes to Best Buy?
Well, no children are allowed to use
They
computers.
card you going into Best Buy.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, sir.
it's no different than tobacco or alcohol. I
It's
mean,
way different. So much different. I mean, you're basically banning information.
yeah. And then pretty soon it's going to be like, oh, we can't have networked consoles anymore because people might be communicating over the internet.
I'm
with-
assuming this is like a modest proposal type
Yeah.
of deal.
But for the result that they want, ultimately it has to be networked computer, right? And ultimately it has to be state issued ID. That's the end game. There's no in between. There's no gray area.
Another
I don't know if
interesting.
the lawmakers actually thought it through that
Oh
far.
my God.
They were literally just like, this sounds good. It'll look good in the paper. Put it in there.
But it would also create an interesting precedent where we would have to rigidly define what sites are and are not social media.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a whitelist. It's like you're allowed to go to CNN.com and probably Politico, and that's about it.
Would Wikipedia count? Because technically you can't interface with other users in the changelogs.
Oh, yeah, no, they would never put it
Social
in
media.
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Not a chance.
There's too much radicalization.
How am I supposed to read about random things now?
Well, the FCC, they're working hard. At least they're doing something right. But they might be wasting a little bit of their time that could be spent on more important things. Let's call back to the ISPs having those hidden charges as well. Maybe look into that instead of this.
FCC fines 15-year-old pirate radio station in New York City $2 million. They were from Ecuador? Yeah, Ecuador.
Yeah, it was like Ecuadorian immigrants who were running like a local community station.
They've been running it for 15 years. They fined them based on the number of days they were operating, like $2,000 a day, and it was like 20 million, but the statutory limit on that kind of thing is only 2-point-something million dollars. But it's taken a lot of work to shut down this pirate radio station.
Seems like they've gotten pretty comfortable as well because they have kind of an infrastructure at this point. So it's going to be easy to find them. I mean, I guess they could flee the country.
Yeah.
They said the one guy posted a picture from random somewhere, and he was like, "You get a prize if you can find me." I guess he knows that they're after.
Yeah.
I wonder if they sold advertising directly. They probably did.
Probably. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not cool.
They're also going to use the precedent here to hopefully have an easier time shutting down a similar pirate radio station in Washington. The dude from the FCC that's been working on this, probably they've spent more than $2 million of taxpayer money trying to shut it down over the last 15 years.
Do you know what's done a better job than they have at shutting down pirate radio stations? The advance of technology.
Yeah. What a waste of resources this is.
No one's going to be listening to FM radio in 15 years.
Does anybody locally in that area that we could cook up a recipe for you for a $5 Raspberry Pi Zero so that you can just plug it in with analog audio? Well, it doesn't have analog audio. You have to jump through a couple hoops, but you plug in a Raspberry Pi Zero and then you get internet radio that way. You just plug that into
This was on the internet.
Oh, okay. Well,
They had an internet radio presence.
they can just keep that running then and shut down the.
I think the Ecuadorian diaspora probably low tech in
Yeah.
that part of New York.
Yeah.
Or yeah, elderly listeners who probably mostly listen to radio.
Maybe
and not
just sit,
podcasts.
they're in the bodega, got the radio on all day, that
Yeah.
type of deal.
Raspberry Pi Zero to convert those old radios.
And what I'm saying is, like, their old radio, they probably paid $3 for. Like, this is a low tech solution.
I brought this over with the old country from me.
Yeah. I don't know anything about your newfangled transistors. And Europe is working on the right to repair issue, and they've got some new rules. They did not go as far as one might hope, but they did make some additions that were much needed.
Europe's right to repair law asks hardware makers for fixes for up to 10 years. Smartphones and tablets would also be added to the EU's list of devices that must be repairable under new rule. Enforcement's going to be tricky with this one, but I've got an idea for how we might do that.
Force them to? Just,
You gonna keep it secret?
Well, no, I just giving you guys a chance to be like, oh yeah, blah, 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 for stuff that was relevant to the article.
I mean, it's a nice idea. I don't know that they'll actually end up enforcing it, but
Unlike the one that was watered down here in the United States, this one actually looks like it's trying to look out for consumer interest. But I think where it's impotent is that it doesn't really have a way that is actionable by hardware owners. Let's say that there's a phone maker that's like Fairphone, and they're using sort of industry standard designs and integrated circuits, but obviously you can't necessarily get the integrated circuits. It's like, does it make sense to repair a phone for 10 years? Like, will they even be around in 10 years to make the parts and everything else for it? Probably not. But what you could do is put the schematics for the phone, like the board and the electrical schematics, in escrow for a year or two with the European Union, like as part of your radio certification, because you already have to be certified for radio and that you're not going to burn a house down and that sort of thing. You have to submit physical drawings with that anyway. Go ahead and submit the schematics and all of the other stuff. And then at the end of 10 years, that automatically enters the public record.
So their solution is there's going to be an online marketplace type deal where you can go and say, hey, I repair X, and then you can be reviewed and have stuff like that. 5 to 10 years parts availability. However, they can charge whatever they want for those parts. So
that could hamstring it right there.
that's easy to defeat.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of other notes. Oh, anti-greenwashing laws. So they don't want these companies just like pretending, kind of like what we did here.
Yeah.
So they've got some good ideas, but a lot of people were immediately questioning, why did you only add tablets and smartphones? Why does this not cover every electronic device?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no excuse for that.
Appliances.
That would be great. Yeah. Appliances, that's ridiculous that those don't last 10 years.
Yeah. You could reasonably get 10 years out of a washer or dryer. But also some of the most clever stuff that we've seen in repair come from modernized third-party replacement stuff. Like laser printers, the old giant box laser printers that were popular at the end of the 90s. There's some incredible new designs for replacement hardware for those printers because they're an incredible like mechanical thing, but the electronics kind of suck now. And so it's like, oh, they made 2 million of this printer that's really cheap to operate. Why don't we just keep it going with totally fresh design replacement parts? That's the potpourri that we can expect from something like this well executed.
And the crypto, we are full throttle war on crypto right now.
Oh, Elizabeth Warren's kind of a holdout. We've got a story on that.
And we've got, that was previous too.
Oh,
And we've got, it's right after the bank failed. So it's true that crypto was the Wild West. There was a lot of bad stuff happening there. A lot of people got hurt. Can't say that that's not wrong. And Belgium is maybe taking a more moderate approach, a common sense thing that we should have in every industry.
Belgian crypto adds warning of risks under new rules. Basically, if you're looking to invest in crypto, this would be like the Surgeon General's warning. Warning, you could lose everything.
They should put that on every investment, not just crypto. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. There is no way to not potentially lose.
I think they should do that with the fiduciary label too, because it's like, oh, I'm a financial advisor. It's like, yeah, but are you a fiduciary? And then it's like, you know, like seize up, and it's like, oh no, it turns out you can have fiduciary requires you to put your interests behind mine by law.
And another example of a government saying, hey, we got a great idea. We're going to fix things. And then people say, all right, how exactly are you going to do that? What are the rules here? And they're like, don't worry about that. That's just details.
Brazil is looking to regulate monetized content on the internet as a possible new revenue stream without understanding anything about what they're trying to do.
This is the, I forgot, what's the number article, the one that protects you from posts on your stuff?
Oh,
Section 230?
Oh, yeah. Section
Yeah,
230.
yeah.
This is kind of like their Section 230, or, you know, the argument over Section 230 Brazilian edition. But they're saying, like, yeah, we want to, for monetized content, if you're making money off of it, then we get a piece. Actually, this goes back to that Florida one. Remember the Florida blogging one?
Oh, yeah.
oh man, yeah.
I read up more on that, and I've changed my mind again. I disagree with you now. Because in the fine print of that, any monetization triggered
it could
it.
apply, yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, that's why I said, you know, they've deliberately, part of what I was saying was that they deliberately obfuscated what it does, because the original version of that was exactly like what you're describing.
And it will be a situation where they won't enforce it
Right.
until somebody pisses them off.
Right.
Right.
Then
And then they
can-
have a whole list of everybody who's ever disagreed with them. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if it's like lobbying funded thing, I'm okay with that. And that's in there too, but that's not all that's in
That's how they sneak it in, is
there.
by
Right.
like, yeah.
Exactly.
And over in Taiwan, they are a little bit worried. There's a bit of a sword hanging over their head from day
Not
to
just
day.
Taiwan, Japan too now. Did you see that they were like simulating having to evacuate citizens?
I think Japan's going to go after their islands.
Oh,
It's
maybe.
it's getting spicy. And we also had the big meetings between Xi and Putin this week.
Yeah.
That actually, nobody's reporting on that, but the agreements they've made there, real bad for the petrodollar.
The Syrian counterattack is happening now, though, as a distraction for that.
Which begs the question, why are we in Syria? But let's focus on Taiwan for now. We learned that they have this little island, and their poor little island has been cut off from the internet since what, like February, January?
Yeah.
A few weeks at least.
That's
Yeah.
been more than a couple of weeks.
I think it was like a month. It
And,
said last month in this article.
So that's more than a couple of weeks. Double, in fact. And so they're thinking, like, what are we going to do about this? Of course, we do have the technology.
Taiwan pursues internet satellite service ahead of potential Chinese invasion. Just don't buy it from somebody who's going to decide what you can use it for mid-stride.
Yeah, I think it sounds like they're trying to develop their own because they don't trust Starlink.
Yeah, well, I mean, Elon
Yeah.
Musk has a lot of interest in China.
Yeah.
He's been real chummy with the CCP. I don't know if I would want him controlling my internet. So, yeah, good luck to them. They should definitely do that. And India is definitely, they're moving into digital India. They want everything online. They want more control over it. Unfortunately, they might want a little too much control.
TechCrunch reports that India won't tolerate abusive, obscene content on streaming services, their prime minister has warned. So they're talking about Prime Video and YouTube and everything else. This actually puts YouTube and, you know, community-generated content services at an extreme disadvantage, because they're almost certainly not going to tolerate anything there, or they're going to demand immediate takedown or immediate URL banning.
They also didn't like really specify what
Yeah.
obscene or abusive means in this context.
That's by design because
Yeah.
they put some critic of Modi in jail for like 6 years this week, so that's fine.
And when you look at the quotes that came out of the companies that would be affected by this, they were like, "Oh, we're so sorry. We would never offend you," because people have been arrested in the past.
Yeah.
A lot of people for this kind of thing. They have to be very, very careful here. So it's unfortunate.
This is a bizarre story to me.
So yeah, the Sikh subpopulation of India, it's not quite Uyghurs, but they're kind of second-class citizens. Or at least I get the impression.
That was the impression I got.
I don't know anything about India's social structures, but we've read more than a few articles about this kind of thing. And it's sort of one of those situations where it's religion is involved in it. And so this guy was a religious leader. He said some things they didn't like, and they went to get him and they couldn't find him. So obviously the next step.
India cuts the internet for 27 million people amid a search for the fugitive.
A single fugitive,
Just one.
to be clear. I mean, I'm sure he's probably got people who are helping hide him, but like one person and cutting off the internet for everybody.
But what they're worried about is he was live streaming his escape on Facebook or some social media, and people were really getting behind it. Like all the people in this area were like, "Yeah, go
Get out of
You know,
here,
be free.
dude.
We
Yeah.
love you." And then he was like, "Oh, there could be a crowd gathering here. Let's get ahead of this."
It's dumb.
And they did for 2 days.
That's really, does anybody want to engage in the content? Because I don't understand.
But it was only mobile. They left hardwired stuff. But a lot of, again, people have adopted like mobile payments and stuff because India's government has pushed them toward that. And for 2 days,
They just cut everybody off.
you got nothing. Yeah. The Russia situation continues to be weird. And if you are a regular Russian, I feel for you. I know it's not popular to say, but I know how much control I have over my government,
All of
which
it.
is a negative amount.
Ryan personally controls the U.S. government.
And I assume,
Big brain conspiracy.
I assume that you people have the same amount. So I do feel for you when you get caught up in this kind of thing.
The Register reports Russian developers blocked from contributing to free and open source tools. It says the maintainer of IPMI tool was locked out. Ooh, that's not good.
And his message was like, "I'll try to find another distribution platform, but at this point, I don't know."
Yeah.
don't
What's
know what
left
to
running
do.
in Russia?
It's pretty much impossible for me to share this with you, even though it's open source and you can look and see if there's anything bad with it. It's unfortunate. And if you're wondering, how do you get people to adopt central bank currency? It's so easy. You simply take away all the other options.
Nigeria's eNaira,
Naira?
Naira, that's it. Wallet use, transactions, etc. climb amid cash shortages, according to Bloomberg. Can't get your cash, but you got this thing. Use this thing, I guess.
So their money supply went from about 3 trillion Naira, I think that's
I think
what
it's
they call it,
Naira, yeah.
to about 1 trillion, about a third of the money supply.
Interesting.
And unfortunately, a lot of people don't even have mobile phones to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they're kind of just screwed.
Oh, I missed this one. I didn't see this one on the list. Was this a late ad?
I don't remember. But yeah, part of the home search, number one problem searching for rural homes, internet connectivity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Number two problem, no HOA. Adamant, I was never going to be a part of an HOA
Same.
because I've heard about stuff like this. I know how this works. It's awful. If you are part of one, I feel for you.
License plate surveillance, courtesy of your homeowners association. This story is about the mayor of a Texas place that discovered.
Oh, the mayor discovered. I'm sorry.
He discovered that one of his communities was doing license plate surveillance, not just inside the community, but also on the highway that runs parallel and adjacent to the homeowners community. And why?
You might be thinking, well, that's a mayor who needs to pay more attention, but no. Turns out you don't need the local government to confirm this. This was the operation between the HOA president and the chief of police and
the
no
company.
one else.
Yeah.
So they go on to point out, and I think we've talked about it before, this Flock is the big one, but there's other license plate companies. They go to the police and they sweeten the deal. These police for sure got a kickback. Yeah. Absolutely. And probably a lot more than we'll ever know about. But basically, remember when Amazon basically had an affiliate program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, if your police department gets a referral on Ring doorbells, you get prizes. And everybody was okay with that.
HOAs are terrible too. Like you can't paint your door a weird color, or like heaven forbid you put some native pollinators out. It's like no. It's only grass here.
And they're never going to defend your privacy because it's a group of people who love power.
Yeah.
Who else would serve on an HOA board? The worst of us.
I cannot tell you how little I care about what color my neighbor's door is.
I wish I never had to see my neighbor's door.
Yeah, I just like I don't understand.
The HOA prevents me from installing trees to prevent me from seeing my neighbor's door.
Yeah, oh they are. They're weird. Like a lot of times they'll have like lists of certain particular trees you can plant. And for some reason the Bradford pear is always on that list. Don't plant Bradford pear.
Why?
It's invasive and also it like if a windstorm comes through, it's one of the first ones to lose its limbs.
What if I love pears?
It doesn't produce fruit.
Oh my God.
It's
why
just
do-
grafted onto a pear.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it does flowers in the spring, which are pretty, but they smell terrible too. So it's like, there's no reason to plant it.
From now on, if I ever see a Bradford pear, I'm going to cut it down.
They're everywhere. Good luck.
Well, listen, I'm going to get a
If you see
chainsaw.
flowering trees this time of year, like in the gutters of the roads, it's probably Bradford pear that has escaped captivity.
Well, JPMorgan has a great new invasion of your privacy. I don't know if they mentioned it in this story, but the biggest name that is now signed on to this, Panera Bread. Is that a Panera cup?
It's not.
But
are-
you love Panera.
You're a
yeah.
big fan of their.
I like
what's
Panera
the
too.
flavor of coffee that you get there?
Hazelnut.
Yeah. Are you willing to trade your face and or palm print?
JP Morgan will let customers pay with their face or palm instead of a card.
Why do we need this? Like who's like, man, it's just too much trouble to pull my card out.
This wouldn't be terrible if it was local. So like, and you use it as a second factor. So it's like, okay, I'm exchanging with the token, and then like as a second factor, I'm verifying my device is saying, yes, the palm that is enrolled with me is the palm that matches this one, where you don't really give your biometric data to JP Morgan. Like as long as you maintain control over it, maybe that would be okay. But that's never how this is implemented.
Yeah, it will never
yeah.
happen that way.
They could do it as a hash.
Yeah.
And they'd never have to store the biometrics.
Exactly.
They will not do
No.
that.
Just like Amazon. This is the kind of thing where lawmakers should be in front, is like, you by law can't store this, because then when the database is inevitably leaked, there's nothing really valuable there, because it's a hash that corresponds to something you physically have. And so the thieves are not able to steal everybody's physical device. Nothing of value was lost, and it'd be less of a target for thieves anyway. But lawmakers are too, whatever we saw in the TikTok thing, to be thinking about those kinds of things.
The adjective just escapes you. It defies description.
Well, there's no way anybody in that room understands the concept of a hash. You know, to them, it's just like, well, the magic box knows. So don't worry.
And the magic box would never lose it.
And there's many ways to make the magic box know, some of which are more evil than others. And the corporations will always choose what is in their best interest versus what is the best technical solution.
I don't know. My lobbyist told me to choose option C.
Yeah, exactly.
Did we talk about this before? I can't remember.
I don't
It's
think
the
so.
20th. Okay, yeah, so good. So this, I would nominate this as the, so far, 2023, the best name for a bug.
Yeah, this is incredible. We need to put this in the title.
Google Pixel Bug lets you uncrop the last 4 years of screenshots. A-Crop-Alypse. Not just Google Pixel, also the Windows snipping tool. If you send anybody a snipping that's had stuff cropped out, you can uncrop it.
Joke's on you. I usually manually crop in Paint.
You didn't know, but you were doing extreme security. when you were doing that. Yeah, I don't know. A-Crop-Alypse now is the obvious one, but that seems a little too obvious. What other apocalypse? There's the X-Men villain Apocalypse. He spelled it differently. We'll have to think about it. Engagement challenge. And Pinduoduo, that's always a weird one to pronounce. That's a hot app in China. Maybe a little too hot.
Google suspends Chinese e-commerce app Pinduoduo over malware.
Turns out that they found a backdoor.
Oh, it was a chain of 4 bugs. Which is
And
exciting.
this thing seemed to be working real hard.
A hallway of backdoors, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Once again, the Matrix predicts the future, where the key master opens the door, and then there's all this stuff connected that's not supposed to be.
Someone on a security forum discovered this, there's one thing that's guaranteed about that anime avatar.
Oh, The Matrix was a documentary.
So yeah, maybe watch out for that one. And that's another in a long line of Chinese apps that you might want to look out for.
Hey, listen, we had to follow the white rabbit in Sons of the Forest also.
Oh yeah, that was a nice little Easter egg. I hope the story improves. We just finished Sons of the Forest, or at least what you can of the story so far, and the ending is little.
They added a new cave since the last time we played.
Oh really?
Well, it couldn't be necessary for the story.
I think they'll probably end up changing the story quite a bit. They did in the first game. Like the first game, though, you couldn't finish the story until it was done. They should have done that this time.
Should have just been a big wall. It's like, wait here.
Just the arm. Like that should have been the gate where it's like, oh, you can't go in because it's not finished yet.
Well,
Spoilers.
speaking of great names, this hacking team is named Clop.
Ooh.
That's got to be related to the Bronies, right?
It's got to be.
Oh, I didn't think about that angle.
But yeah, they have hacked, or they claim to have hacked, a bunch of people.
New victims come forward after mass ransomware attack. Clop claimed it mass hacked 130 organizations. Now the list of known victims is growing. Some people just pay the ransom and go on, or restore from backup and go on, and never bother with dealing with anything because that's the least headache.
Canadian government, City of Toronto, Hitachi. There was some other big. Oh yeah, Go Anywhere was how they got in here. So it was supply chain. Everybody who used Go Anywhere was susceptible, and so it seems like they have so much now. They're still going through what they've got. They don't even know what they've got yet. They've been out looting, and now they're just happily going through their loot sacks.
Like playing a video game with Wendell and like, where's Wendell? And he's just going through his loot.
There's so much loot here.
We've already moved on to the next cave, Wendell.
No.
Wendell's also famous for not sorting his loot.
Yeah.
He doesn't like that part of it. There's no endorphins in it. And Israeli spyware. Boy, we hear a lot about that. And you might be thinking, oh, I know who this is about. No, a new contender.
Senior Meta official hacked by Israeli spyware Predator in Greece.
Starts with a C. Do you remember the name of it?
She was vacationing, and then her phone and stuff got infected.
This gal here, she works for Meta. And it was confirmed by like some really high level people looking at it. And they're like, oh yeah, you definitely got it. I can't find the name of the company, but it's not the usual one. It's a new one. And this one is almost exactly like the other one, except this one requires a click. And they got her with a vaccination text message. Click here to confirm your vaccination. She clicked it. They got her. So they're mad about that. And Bitcoin ATMs. I learned that this is a thing by watching the shoplifting gas station counters YouTube channel. Because a lot of the shoplifters would get what they were going to shoplift, and they would go back around the corner to the Bitcoin ATM, and they're like, oh yeah, let me just get some Bitcoin ATM, while they stuff the stuff in their like pockets or their pants or whatever. Like that was their big distraction. So these things exist, but you might want to stay away from them.
Hackers drained Bitcoin ATMs of $1.5 million by exploiting a 0-day bug. It was patched in 15 hours once the people figured out what was going on. But if you had hosted a wallet that your Bitcoin ATM account had access to, that was all drained.
How did they do it? Well, if you are a victim of this, you should be furious, and you've probably got a lawsuit, because the reason they were able to upload a payload to the server, not the ATMs themselves, these allowed customers to upload video.
I think they were doing, it doesn't say in the article, but it seems like they were gearing up to support NFTs as well. And then the sales.
And then everyone was like, why would I want an NFT?
Yeah.
Or it could, I was thinking maybe it could be that they're like a snippet of video of who's using it, for like your bank does.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
But why would the customer ever be able to get to that interface?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they got in and just robbed people the old-fashioned way. They weren't stealing directly from the ATMs, but it has to be a hot wallet because it has to be an ATM. Unfortunate.
Rip.
And finally, if you enjoy, you know what? I bet there's a lot of anime avatars on this site. Or I should say there were.
Data breach leak site BreachForums has shut down.
Rip.
Law enforcement.
So the administrator, he called himself Pom Pom something. They got him. They captured him. And some of the other guys on the site were monitoring it, and they were like, oh, he just logged in, which means the FBI now runs the server. Everybody out of the pool.
There's something floating here. We need to get out.
So,
Well, it's good they notice. They don't always notice.
yeah, better security than the FBI themselves probably have.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yeah, they usually like to run these things for 6 months to a year.
Well, that's it.
Just gathering info. We got a lot of business stories tomorrow.
Unfortunately. Hopefully my contact is not.
You're struggling. Over
I
there.
am a little bit. I'm trying to keep my head down so I'm not staring into the studio light.
Yeah, the lights are oppressive.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys then. Bye.